Florida ranks above the national average in cost of living and below the national average of median household income, and has a poverty rate above the national average.
People look at Florida as the land of opportunity. We are a tourism-based, service-based economy. Who's going to mow your lawn and serve you that cocktail and at dinner, or teach your children here in a few years, because we're making it near impossible to survive, and people are having to move further away from municipalities to be able to afford to live. And that, again, the math doesn't work. If you're blessed to live on the ocean with a big McMansion over there, God bless you, but I shouldn't have to pay for your insurance. Everybody's in it for themselves. And when that happens, you've got a problem. Mm-hmm. We really need to start looking at how it benefits the whole instead of the few.
So on Tuesdays and Thursdays, we see anywhere from 130 to 150 people. If we close down for 2 weeks, what would it look like in West Orange County alone?
So I can tell you that when I'm driving downtown Plant Street, you might not know them, but I know them.
Absolutely.
And we know the homeless down there. We know they're there. And now take those same people again, as Shelley said, now you unbathed, no haircuts, no laundry, no medical care, none of that other stuff we're doing. What's that going to look like?
Hi everyone, Tracy Lewis with We Are Winter Garden, and I am joined here by Pastor Scott, who is the CEO and founder of Matthew's Hope. Also my dear friend Shelley Bradford, who is the president and executive director of Matthew's Hope. Today we are on episode 41 of Straight Talk, No BS with Matthew's Hope, where we're going to be talking about the Central Florida's out of control homeless crisis. So Central Florida, it's often referred to as the happiest place on earth, thanks to the presence of so many theme parks, but that isn't always the case for everybody in our communities, as you guys know. The annual point-in-time count is a federally mandated census of people who are homeless, conducted by volunteers who head out and they attempt to count each individual they find living in the shelters or unsheltered, like in cars, tents, wooded areas, during a certain time frame. These results of the most recent annual point-in-time count showed that across Orange, Osceola, and Seminole counties, 2,883 people are currently experiencing homelessness. Among those, 1,201 were unsheltered. Now that's a 105% increase from the previous year. Experts say that our region has a deficit of more than 57,000 units for extremely low-income households and needs another 95,000 units for workers earning the median income. The median income is roughly $69,303, which is below the national average. Now, what is your guys' reaction to those numbers that we just talked about?
That's low. That's really low.
I think is as much as they show. You said 105% increase is what they're showing
from last year. The annual point-in-time count. Yep.
I can assure anybody who's listening that that number's way off. If you just look at the numbers that we're serving through Matthew's Hope, just through our Orange County location, we're seeing those numbers just ourselves. I think the challenge you have in the point-in-time count is homelessness is on a constant move, and you have volunteers that do this once a year that aren't really familiar with all the latest stops. You know, I can tell you that our populations we see due to development, there's not the camps we're used to go out to, but we know where the pockets are. So we're able to do a better count over a period of time in our registration. So I think the challenge is that's the number that's going to be used for funding by the Fed, by HUD.
Yeah.
And so it's already underfunded. Now you're undercounting, which means we'll be further underfunded going forward. So that creates a real challenge here.
What do you guys see at Matthew's Hope, the fastest growing demographic on outreach days for the homeless?
We've been seeing a lot more families, and I don't know if it's just because school's out, but just this week we had a couple families come in with a lot of kids. And like I said, I don't know if it's just because school's out right now, and normally we just wouldn't see the children. But that's been, I'm not saying that's the biggest thing, but we see a lot of families.
You see that growing?
You see a lot of families. I mean, the housing crisis has really taken its toll on young families. A lot of the general public doesn't realize what the requirements are. Very different than certainly my age group coming up. I mean, now it's first, last, and deposit. We've kind of got used to that, but now you have to show 3 times whatever your rent is. So if it's $2,000, you have to show an income of $6,000 a month. That's $72,000 a year to have a 1-bedroom apartment.
Yeah.
I think the thing that concerns me more so than that is the number of seniors that we're seeing.
For sure.
And the challenge with these folks is no one's made a mistake. They didn't do something wrong. They simply had a pension that wasn't designed for this economy and possibly have recently been widowed. Mm-hmm. And they've lost a chunk of that pension or their Social Security. And now in their 70s and 80s are first-time homeless. We're seeing a lot of that.
Yes.
And I know we've talked about it before, and I know this is near and dear to you, having children with special needs, but these folks that are mentally and physically disabled, who often weren't living past their 30s not that long ago, are now living into their 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, but their caregivers are dying 20, 30 years prior to that. And there's no plan in place for them, nor am I aware of anything that's in place.
I mean, you have to really have somebody wealthy around them that can build a special needs trust. And that's just not a really well-known thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and that's, you know, my boys have that, but my brother doesn't have that.
Yeah.
You know, so if he didn't have us, he would be with Matthew's Hope or somebody like Matthew's Hope.
Sure.
And he wouldn't have a clue on how to navigate that world.
And you, Shelley, you know this better than anybody. You mentioned that, and the word you used was someone with wealth. And,
correct.
And so, again, by the way, for whatever it's worth, I don't want anybody to think that Shelley's overpaid being the president of Matthew's Hope.
I'm not.
Okay. The boy's father has done okay. But that is not the norm.
No,
okay,
it's
that's
not.
set up for them. That trust is set up for them. But as a general thought process is, most of these folks that are dealing with special needs, often that's the cause of their homelessness to begin with, much less think about what's going to happen once that child grows up and they're gone.
Yeah.
And so that's a huge concern of, I think, all of us, because it's a relatively new demographic of homelessness as far as its amount of growth.
Yes.
People probably don't think of families being homeless.
Right.
Special needs children being homeless.
Right.
Senior citizens being homeless. They think of drugs.
Well, and often disabilities from the unknowing eye looks like a drug addiction.
Yes.
The tics, the movement,
Sure.
The slow process of thought.
Right.
Sometimes the inability to speak. I can't tell you how many in Brevard County, how many deaf and mute people we serve over there.
And I can't imagine how scared they are. Like, that's not an environment that they maybe were not prior in. So this is a whole new, and just somebody who isn't in that, you know, special needs area is hard to cope with. I can't imagine how they would even begin to cope with.
And the sad part for is they're often getting arrested for people believing that they're high or something, and they're not. I mean, I'm not even talking about mental illness. That's a whole nother subject. Sure. But I'm just talking about as far as folks that are born with disabilities, physically and mentally, that just enables them, makes it unable for them to function by themselves, be self-supportive and what have you.
Yeah,
and
to advocate for themselves.
Yeah.
They just can't.
And so they get out on the streets, and all of a sudden someone complains because they see somebody, they got CP. Okay.
Yeah.
But if you've ever watched some of the people high on crack or PCP, what have, if you untrained eye, it looks the same. Mm-hmm. And so someone calls. Next thing you know, this person often can't communicate for themselves. So that's taken as you're just too high to communicate.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And we see them be arrested over and over and over again. And unfortunately, and I don't blame this on the police, I really don't. There's a lack of training to police to understand that. And we need to do something about that.
So let's talk a little bit more about numbers. This year, U.S. News and World Report ranked Florida as having the #1 economy in the country based on the business environment, employment, and growth. However, they are also ranked Florida as number 45 when it comes to opportunity, citing affordability, economic opportunity, and equality as the factors. Florida ranks above the national average in cost of living and below the national average of median household income, and has a poverty rate above the national average. Wow.
Yep.
So what is your guys' reaction after hearing those ranks?
The math doesn't work.
Not at all.
This has always been a fallacy of Florida as a whole, that people look at Florida as the land of opportunity. And that's part of the challenge. A lot of people come here, and it's not that there's not opportunity, but there's an opportunity for a select few.
Yes.
If you're specialized in engineering, things like that, we are a tourism-based, service-based economy. We survive in Florida on tax dollars raised through restaurants and revenue raised by, Disney, SeaWorld, Universal, the other parks and things that we have throughout the state. And I don't think people realize what a drain that is when you don't have a state income tax. Yeah. So we lack social services that people are used to up north,
Mm-hmm.
and there's no way to fund those, and nobody's looking to fund those. And then you look at the other side of this too, where you sit there and go, we're flooding our market with people.
Yeah.
Now, I find it interesting. One thing that I've said too is that who's going to mow your lawn and serve you that cocktail
Right.
and that dinner,
Right.
or teach your children here in a few years, because we're making it near impossible to survive, and people are having to move further away from municipalities to be able to afford to live. And that, again, the math doesn't work.
So people on TV, they love to point out that Democratic-run cities like Los Angeles, Portland, New York City, when they give examples of tent cities and homelessness, why do you guys think that they don't talk more about our area here in Florida?
Because it hasn't happened yet. Not like that, but it's coming.
I think it's coming faster than people think it is. And I mean, I was just at another meeting for Orange County commissioners recently, and I made a comment about exactly some of the things we're talking about, housing, the growing population, and the mayor's response was, it's certainly something we need to be looking closer at. That's an answer I've heard from every mayor and
quicker
city
than
manager
they're
for a dozen years.
Mhm.
And
That's
it's
probably a little bit more than he said in the past, though. We'll give him that credit.
I'll give okay, fair enough. Okay, she's Shelley. She's always the one that's gonna look out for these folks more than me.
Gotta have
Listen.
balance.
But and it's
At least it was acknowledged.
I don't think it's necessarily that. Look, I'm not going to speak for Jerry Demings, the mayor of Orange County. I know Jerry, and I'm not going to suggest that he doesn't care.
Sure.
I can't say either way. What I can say as a general statement, the voters don't care enough to want to do anything about it.
It hasn't affected them yet.
It hasn't
But
affected them
that's
yet.
a big yet.
Yes, and that's a very big yet.
Yes.
And,
Which I feel like it's just going to come and slap everybody in the face.
It is
Well,
absolutely.
and if, I remind people all the time, I'm quoted in 2019 that in the paper that we locally in Orange County, municipalities should be preparing for homeless tsunami. And that was before the pandemic. And back then I said it would take 3 to 5 years to be where we find ourselves. And it actually took 3 to 5 months when the pandemic hit, and has progressively gotten worse since then. Yet nothing has really changed. There's no new shelter. There is no new plan in place. The only thing that we really have in place is going October 1st. We've talked about this in prior podcasts, is HB 1365, making it illegal to sleep outside. Well, what's that going to accomplish?
Right.
Okay, that's not addressing the problem.
Yeah.
That's suggesting in a weird way that homeless people will all leave Florida. Watch out, Georgia. Here they come.
They're coming to you.
Yes.
What do you think it's going to take to help people realize that there is a crisis and that something's happening, and it's one day they're going to see it? Because if you guys weren't here, I can't imagine how it
We've
would
said
even be.
before, if we closed down for 2 weeks, what would it look like in West
Right.
Orange County alone?
Because you guys do a lot with showers,
Yeah.
clothing, food.
Hiding people in plain sight.
Medical,
Yeah.
laundry,
Yeah.
haircuts. I mean,
Right.
the challenge we've had, and we've had to make significant cuts the last several weeks because we have been outspending our ability. And I want to be clear on this. We've not lost our donors. In fact, our donor base continues to grow, but our average average donations are down.
Yeah.
And the number of people, the sheer number of people we're adding right now, we're easily adding 40 to 60 people a week between our two locations. Again, I don't like that math because that's 40 to 60 more mouths to feed to try to get services and what have you. And we just simply are underfunded for that.
So in upcoming podcast, we are going to talk about the breakdown of budgets and everything and where all that money goes. What do you think people can do to help other people, or those that are watching and listening to us now? How can they help sound this alarm that there's a crisis and that it's getting bigger and bigger?
Yeah, I mean, as far as, also bringing awareness is people can do something as simply as sharing our podcast. We're talking about the issues, and this is happening countrywide. This is not just Central Florida, though. If you live here, we can get very specific in the needs. But what it's also going to take is people need to understand that they need to know what their state representatives are voting for, because they are forcing things on the local municipalities with no funding. On top of that, unfortunately, our local municipalities do not work with one another.
No.
So we need to, as voters and as voices, encourage you to call your local city managers, your mayors, your commissioners, county-wide, statewide, all those, and ask them. Again, we've talked about this before. Is there a plan? If there is a plan, what is it and when will it be implemented? If there's not a plan, why not? You need to be asking those questions, because until this becomes an important enough issue for them to address, they're going to go with that small segments that are showing up at the polls and voting them into office. Some of the stuff, shenanigans we're seeing right now before the election of what local senator over in Brevard just went over to Israel all of a sudden. This guy was, they're talking about ethics charges on him, and all of a sudden everybody's talking about how wonderful he is. Again, I'm not here to pick on politicians. They can make a fool of themselves. What I am saying, though, is we as voters and you as voices need to be heard, because it's that old saying that used to say, pay me now or pay me later.
Yeah.
Paying now is going to be a lot cheaper than paying later.
Well,
and that's our concern.
When that tsunami hits, what is that going to look like? What's that ripple effect going to look like? What are people going to see?
Well,
we don't do anything
we've
now.
even seen it a little bit this past year, where we've seen tents pop up on Highway 50, West Colonial. And we've seen tents in Dr. Phillips on the sidewalk. I agree, nobody wants to see that, but not here is not an answer. We need to start looking at how do we address this head on, rather than just try to make a shell game out of it and just keep moving people around and hoping nobody sees what we're doing.
Passing it to this person or passing it to
That's all we're doing.
Yeah, let's come together.
There's municipalities out there that would be inappropriate for me to name, and this time I'm actually not going to say it, because everybody thought I was going to say Rockledge. And
But I'm not going to say it.
And I'm not going to say it. I'm just not going to say it.
You didn't hear it.
We know they've dropped people off in Cocoa. I have witnessed it. Okay. I have seen Ocoee drop people off in Winter Garden. Now, the new chief in Ocoee might have a different way of doing things, but this in fact has happened. And there has to, there's people right now implementing a law that doesn't even go into effect October 1st. But what homeless person is going to say to them, well, that's not right. They're not, they're just going to go, okay, cop said it, I believe it, I'm going.
Right. Right.
So as we mentioned before, if Florida ranks above the national average in cost of living and below the national average of median household income and has a poverty rate above the national average, how quickly can one person go from, living in a home to becoming homeless?
Faster than most people believe. I'm going to use a simple thing that happened to me recently. A few years ago, I was able to buy a house undervalued on the water, on a canal in Merritt Island. And we bought it well under value, and that was a blessing. And the thing is doubled in price since we've moved in 5 years. Now, if I want to sell and move away, way away, I'm going to come out on top. But just 2 weeks ago, I get notice that my house payment due to insurance and taxes went up $800 a month.
Wow. A month?
A month. So right now I'm still kind of reeling from that and trying to figure out how, right now I can handle that for the short, but we're trying to figure out exactly how are we going to absorb another $800 a month. Okay. People think I'm overpaid as it is. Okay? I hear about it all the time. I don't know where they get that from, but they have no idea how Matthew's Hope got started, but that's another story on itself. But $800 a month, and I'm sitting there going, how do we do that? Now, I have planned for some of this, but most people have
God
not.
You did.
Well, yeah, because the truth is, I mean, think about that. With your income not going up $800 a month and just overnight when everything else has gone up too.
Everything else.
Okay.
Yeah.
We have a 24-year-old living with us now, so I'm feeding another mouth. My electricity's gone up. My water has gone up. You're dealing with all these things, and this is something the average person in the United States is dealing with, quite honestly. Yeah. But in Florida, it's taken a whole nother, when you throw in the insurance aspect of it also, it throws in a whole nother loop into that thing. And, quite honestly, it makes my mouth dry when I think about it, is how long can you do that? You do that to the average person. And this has happened, especially some of our seniors, where this kind of thing has happened, and they've lived in the same house their entire life, and they no longer can afford to live there. And they don't know why, because they when you sit down and talk with them, it's like, I've done nothing wrong.
Right.
No, what you did wrong is you lived a long life and you possibly lost a spouse. How dare you? I mean, that's kind of the foolishness you hear in some of the political arenas, whether it's Democrats, Republicans. I can assure you there's no one has clean hands in this, and hasn't had for decades. We're just getting closer to paying the piper.
That's good.
So you mentioned voting a few times. Is homelessness a red state or blue state issue, or is it universal?
I personally think it's universal. I don't think it matters.
I don't think it matters. I don't think it registers high enough on anyone's radar right now to where anyone's being concerned. We're right now fighting battles that were fought back in the 60s all over again. That's how we're spending our time and our energy. No matter where you stand on those issues, whether it be, the rights of women and what have you, I'm astonished. Whether I agree with all of them or disagree with all of them is besides the point. The fact that we're back here again. What do they say? If you don't learn from your past, you're damned to repeat it.
Yeah. Here
we are again. But it drives political rage. It creates votes.
Definitely.
And it gets people to the polls. And then nobody's really paying attention to what do these people believe.
Right.
They're getting hung up on little things. And so things like homelessness that are probably a lot bigger on that plate than anybody realizes until, and maybe not even when it happens, until they're camped out on our streets. Maybe nothing happens. I mean, look what happened out in LA. LA now is trying to do something about it, but when Skid Row was just a few blocks, everybody's went, well, we've kind of contained it. And then Skid Row became a few miles, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, everybody's throwing their hands up. God, we got to do something. It's like a cancer. It's invading. Well, you know how you get rid of cancer? You catch it early, and you take care of it. Because if you don't, it spreads. And that's exactly what's happening. They're ignoring it. They're ignoring the health of our nation, the health of our state. And everybody's going to suffer because of that.
Yep.
What are some bigger issues that people should research that ultimately contributes to our current crisis?
I think there's so many things that play into this. Insurance is a big one.
That we talked about.
We do need to figure out how all types of insurance, but when it comes to housing insurance, my feelings are, if you're blessed to live on the ocean with a big McMansion over there, God bless you, but I shouldn't have to pay for your insurance. Okay. And that's kind of how this is. We're spreading it all over for a few to have what they want to have. And I'm not one of those guys. Look, I'm a conservative at heart when it gets right down to it. Feel free to stuff your pockets with as much money as you can make. A, just remember where it came from, and B, don't forget the other ones around you. And I think we're very much in this country right now, and I feel it every day with the things I see said to me on social media. We're in a very much everybody's in it for themselves, and when that happens, you've got a problem. Because what happens is even the people that are the ones making the biggest noise, they don't know this, but this is going to crash on them too.
Right.
Okay, and then they're going to complain about that.
Yeah. Do you think medical could be a part of that as well? Because I feel like, to have medical insurance, health insurance is through the roof. Is there something that our politicians can do about that we need to pay attention to?
Well, first off, why are insurance companies even involved to be able to help our politicians get voted in?
Right.
Okay. That's the first question a lot of people have to ask themselves is why? Because again, I got attorneys on my board. I love the attorneys on my board. I don't say all attorneys are bad, but we've created such a storm here in Florida with the insurance aspect of it, the medical aspect of it. Everybody's going to pay. I don't know that I could say one, and I won't speak for you. I don't know how I feel about universal medicine. What I do believe, though, is that we need to do a better job at preventative medicine.
Yes.
And we just aren't. We're allowing things to happen that look, years ago, I lived long enough that I remember when they outlawed smoking and outlawed, but now, and just a couple days ago, it has been approved, the FDA, I'm not sure if it's the FDA did, approved menthol vapes.
Oh. Okay.
Okay. After they
I don't ever believe the FDA approves.
So
that's just my personal opinion.
Well, you sit here and go, but we've done this before.
Why? Yeah.
We've done, and we know that that vaping is creating a problem. Okay. But we continue to do the same thing. And then somebody's going to come be the hero in a few years. And they're finally going to get vaping taken away. How about we already know it's a problem, stop now.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, the other side of it is my feelings are you want to smoke yourself to death, that's your business, but that is also not on my time or my dime. And that's why we're so tough, if for lack of a better words, on our guests taking care of themselves.
Definitely.
You need to participate in your care and well-being. And a lot of places, they don't do that. And we want them to be part of that because if we know the economy is going to continue, look, I believe in all my heart, no matter who's elected, we got a problem. So a president isn't going to change anything.
No.
The statewide, really what's going to happen is who's your state representatives. Okay. That's what you need to pay attention to. But outside of that, I think that we're in so deep in some of the stuff that we're going to have to figure out how to get through it one way or the other.
Sure.
But we really need to start looking at how it benefits the whole instead of the few. We've been talking about that for years, and I'll probably get some nasty grams on that. But if you want to comment on what I just said, what I would ask that you come visit us first and take a tour of Matthew's Hope and see what I see every day.
Yeah.
And then I'm more than happy to hear what your suggestions are. And
Yeah, for sure.
So Shelley, you mentioned earlier, and we touched a little bit, but let's go back to that. How if Matthew's Hope was not here in Orange County or Brevard County, which they are separate campuses, but what would it look like? What would we see more of or less of?
I think pretty quickly you would start seeing more panhandling, because that's something we just do not endorse. We don't want to see. And really, if we're here, there's no reason for somebody to be panhandling. I think that would be the first thing you're going to see. And then you're going to start smelling people when you walk by them. You're going to start seeing, dirty clothes. There's so much that we as Matthew's Hope offer to the homeless community that is unique to us.
Definitely.
I do think that, Jay Gardner, if you don't know who Jay Gardner is, Google him. Jay was a 3-star general, amazing man, sits on our board. And Jay will tell you that, he travels all over for speaking engagements and different things he's still involved with. And he says that he lives here in West Orange County. And he says, when you compare West Orange County to other places he goes, you barely know there's homeless there. And I think sometimes that hurts us a little bit because people assume because you can't see it, it's not there.
Right.
I mean, we have jokingly, but only half jokingly, talked about closing down for 2 to 4 weeks, give ourselves some release financially, but let the community feel what's there. Because I would assure you that you're going to see more people downtown. You mentioned smell. You're going to smell people that are not hygienically being taken care of again. You're going to notice these things pretty rapidly. I mean, if you look at the number of haircuts, showers, and laundry we do in the medical, I think our medical team now is seeing something like upwards of 40 people a day.
Wow.
Those are people not in our ER. They're getting care. The hospitals aren't paying for that. We are trying to pull that out of our budgets. But when you pull all those things out and just release them into the universe, someone's going to feel it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So let's go a little bit deeper into that, because you guys provide a lot of services and you have outreach days. About how many people are you serving, and what services are they receiving?
So on Tuesdays and Thursdays, we see anywhere from 130 to 150 people. Wow.
Per location.
Per location. Yeah, that's what I was about to say. Sorry. Yeah. I just say it a little different than you. Per location. So if just imagine those people who are here anyway, walking past you or being in beautiful downtown Winter Garden, beautiful Cocoa Village. They're still already there, but now they have not showered. They have not had anything to eat. So they're going to be panhandling. So your nice, comfortable day at the farmer's market, walking Cocoa Village is now going to be, you're now going to have panhandlers, people asking you for money, asking you for food, as well as they're not going to be pleasant because they are going to smell. They're going to not have their hair cut. They're not going to have clean clothes. They will not have showered, all of that. So
fitting in before hiding.
And then now let's see. So we have 800 visits a week plus right now between our two locations, because we're mobile also.
It's a lot of people.
So Apopka, imagine this. Ocoee, imagine this. Winter Garden, imagine this. Windermere, Dr. Phillips. I mean, just keep going. Cocoa Beach. Okay. Now here's the other thing is we talked about, because you mentioned the farmer's market.
Yes.
Okay. So now imagine this, because Matthew's Hope isn't here. Not only these people walking around, smelling to high heaven.
It's summer.
Asking for help, right? Okay. Some of them probably getting aggressive because they're hungry and tired. That's going to happen with individuals. It's not because they're homeless. It's because they're humans. Now, the police can enforce getting them out there. And so now we get to watch the police escort homeless people out of downtown. What does that look like for the city beautiful?
Right.
Okay.
And the people coming to visit Winter Garden or all of these
and see this too. Right. Yeah. I mean, again, we've met with John Williams, the city manager here. I like John. We've had some challenges with the city lately, but my hope is that people are looking quickly looking ahead, because again, October 1st, when that new law goes into place, that just emphasizes it that much more, because you're going to see people more on the move because they're not going to be allowed to stay in areas. And so the more mobile they become, it's just even the last few years in this area, due to development, the woods have disappeared.
Yeah.
So I can tell you that when I'm driving downtown Plant Street, you might not know them, but I know them.
Absolutely.
And we know the homeless down there. Yeah. We know they're there. And now take those same people again, as Shelley said, now you unbathed, no haircuts, no laundry, no medical care, none of that other stuff we're doing. What's that going to look like? And when the fact that eventually they will, because there's going to be a lot of legal battles over there, you are going to see where tents are going to be set up where you don't want them.
So people that are listening or watching, they're thinking, well, it doesn't affect me.
It does.
It does, and it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's probably the number one challenge we have now, is it doesn't affect me.
Right.
Okay?
So how can we help? What can we do to support your efforts in helping them shower, helping them get haircuts, helping them get their nails done, helping fill their bellies?
Well, I mean, obviously nobody likes to talk about money. Matthew's Hope is a big operation to do what we do, and we're not a government funded agency. We have some budget money we work through with Orange County. It's like just over 6% of our budget.
Well, with the numbers that we were talking about before,
Well,
obviously they're lower than what's really happening. So the funding.
Well, here's the challenge: is that even the money that they have to work with to make available through the grant process is well below what's needed because the numbers are being underreported. So you got a budget that.
And if you think about what has been reported, we're seeing over half of them.
Mm.
Well, that's it. Right now at each
Right.
location, we have about 2,000 active names. Active means that we have seen them over the last several months. Eventually, they kind of fall off. But most of the people we see on a regular basis, so those are regular basis people within the last few months, last few weeks, what have you. So those numbers just make no sense every
Right.
time we hear it because it means we have them all.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the budget for the entire state of Florida is $40 million. Okay, here's where it gets interesting. They just raised it by 10, but keep in mind, due to inflation, we're probably right back to what it was worth,
Right.
at $30 million.
Because we all
And-
experienced
but
the
here-
food inflation.
Here's put this in
and the
perspective, though.
inflation.
Our budget this year for our two campuses
Yep.
will be about $15 million. So you're talking about trying to fill up the ocean with spit.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, it dries up faster than it's going to create any water. And again, they'll look right at you and deny this,
Mhm.
but the numbers speak for themselves. The math doesn't lie.
Right. Right.
Okay, and so people need to educate themselves. Number one. Number two, I would encourage people, and I do encourage people to reach out to us and ask the questions you're wondering about. There's no question that's too hard for us that we won't try to answer. There's no question that we will shy away from. You may not like our answer, but we'll give you to the best of our ability what we know to be the truth. And then if you have an idea, we're listening to that too. But what we really want to encourage people to do, yes, please, we need more donors. Yes, we need more food, clothing, hygiene. We put all that on our Facebook pages and update that constantly.
Okay.
But we need people to participate in the process.
Okay.
It's as simply as writing a letter or making a phone call to their state representative, to their local mayor, to their local commissioners. You got to get these people talking at the same table together, because until that happens, and they're nowhere close to it, no one is talking.
And the
to
more
each other.
people that are requesting this, the more people. If you just do it, they'll be like, "Oh, Scott, Shelley's doing it. It's Tracy doing
It's
it.
our
John's
it's our
doing
passion.
it." The
Yeah.
community is starting to roll in. They're going to be like, "We have to listen to them."
Yeah.
Do you know how a woman enjoys a man telling them calm down? Okay, here's what I'm
It's my
told.
favorite.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. And any
And
one
I
of you that
stop.
denies this, okay, I'm told all the time when I talk to these people, well, Scott, you're passionate about it. It's your passion. See, I am passionate about it, but I'm going to point out to you what's wrong.
Yeah.
Okay. There's other things I'll point out to you if you want to know about them that I think are wrong, but it's not, has nothing to do with my passion. It's wrong.
Right.
Okay. So, but if it doesn't affect their jobs,
Right.
okay, the legislators that have done affect their jobs, they're going to keep doing what they're doing. Okay. Until there looks like there's a threat to them, and then they might listen. And until voters rise up, I think the local vote recently in downtown Orlando for that one seat,
Mhm.
they had like 1,000 people show up.
It's ridiculous.
This?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying the right or wrong person got chosen. I'm simply saying 1,000 people showed up.
We need to do better.
We got to do better.
And
We gotta do-
I think also it needs to be said. So we want to be part of the solution. We don't want to sit there and kick you because you being the politicians, whoever.
Mhm.
We want to be part of the solution. We don't want to be adversarial
Right.
with the local, municipalities. We want to be there and be part of the solution. And right now, I think that they see us as adversaries.
Yeah.
And that's a problem as well.
Definitely.
It
so,
is.
The more people, like you said, call, and it's not just us, because I will say, yesterday when I had to call the Winter Garden Police, I paused a little, but I really needed to call them,
Yeah.
because I needed their help.
Right.
And I shouldn't have that thought of,
Right.
if I come, am I going to get attitude? because
Should
that's
be a
what we
team
get.
effort from
Yeah,
all of
we
us.
want to be part of the solution.
Well, and also, and look, I'm going to give credit where credit is due. I was at this meeting the other day, and one of the things that Nicole Wilson, who happens to be the commissioner right now for this area, Nicole was pushing very hard for even places to get water for the homeless right now.
Yeah.
And a lot of what she says has fallen on deaf ears. And she can't do it by herself. People need to also understand how our government works, okay? There's no one person pushing all the buttons, okay? And so I can say that Nicole has very much been a supporter of trying to deal with this. But as a general whole, it's not as important to Orange County to deal with it.
Yeah.
So, and there's people who get mad. I was mentioning earlier before we went on air that I got people mad at me right now because of the fact that we're ruining the environment with bottled water. And my comment was, we're just trying to keep people healthy and alive. I also, first, I don't want the homeless people out there. Number two, I'd really prefer not to give out plastic bottles. But you can yell at me and get mad at me for that, but nobody's given me an alternative other than people said, give them gallon jugs or cups of water. Okay. Well, they're on the move. Okay, they need more fluid than that.
Yeah.
So that's great ways that we all can help, and let's try to make a point of doing that. Shelley, also there's a fall fundraiser coming up. Can you tell us about that so we can help not only come together and learn more about Matthew's Hope, but we can have fun. We can also, create some funds for Matthew's Hope. Tell us about that.
So it's going to be called the Roaring 20s, right?
Yeah.
20s. So it's where people come and they dress up for the period that it's for.
Okay.
And it's just we're going to have casino night as well. That's not what it's supposed to be called, is it?
Well,
let's cut that.
It's gaming.
Game night.
Game night.
It's gaming.
Probably should have read those.
As guys shoot from the ceiling.
I know. It's going to be game night.
Does sound more fun.
Yes, it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a lot of fun.
And then in Brevard that's going to be September
28th.
Yes.
And then on November 9th in Brevard, we're doing a speakeasy on our campus over there.
Oh, nice.
Very similar in how they'll be set up, but it's an opportunity for people to come out, have fun, help us raise money. We'll have auctions, we'll have things. We're just opening our store in Brevard, so our Hope Chest stores have really changed to more vintage type furniture and things like that. So we want to encourage people. That's another way to invest in your community is buying pieces from us or attending our stuff or sponsoring an event or sponsoring a breakfast or there's so many ways to get involved from and every dollar counts. Our average donor is middle class. And the hardest part for the middle class, quite honestly, is they've been kicked in the teeth the last several years since the start of the pandemic and really haven't recovered. So the more the merrier. We need you if you want us here. Simply put, if you want us here, we need you or we're not going to survive.
Definitely. We need to do this as a team. Well, thank you guys so much for being here. Thank you guys for listening, watching. Next week, we are going to be joined by Chloe Johnson, who is our District 3 Commissioner here in Winter Garden, to continue to discuss about the crisis in our area. So we hope to see you guys back. Have a great day. Make sure you're liking, commenting, sharing on all of the podcasts.
Because we're like on all kinds of.
We are.
Help me remember because I know that we're on a bunch of different outlets now.
So I know that I can find it on my Apple. I know it's Spotify. Pandora. That's right. Yep. I believe anywhere that you listen to your favorite podcast, you can find us there.
So that's cool. That's cool. Listen to us. And let us know what you think. No, yeah, thanks. Yeah, it's cool.
You guys have been working really hard, and I know John from our team has been working hard, so shout out to him.
John's a rock star. Never wants to come in front of the camera, but he's a rock star for us.
And thank you guys for watching and listening and sharing, because without you, it won't grow. And we need to do this as a team. So we'll see you guys next time.